So, hello, fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 64554637228, and I wanted to talk about why I think that conservatism can lead back to authoritarianism. Um, by authoritarianism, I mean back to a king, back to an emperor, back to um, some dictator or a Caesar. And by conservatism, I mean not wanting liberal ideas to prosper and for people to have that. Um, so essentially, I think that one of the big reasons why it can lead back to a dictatorship, and I'm saying back to because, democracy is not something that has always been the case as far as I know. Um, we often look back to the Greeks for having started this idea of people being able to vote on who they want to lead them. I don't know that it was that many Greek groups or sects or um, whatever that actually held to that, but I do know that there was voting involved. The most recent that I can think of was when the place where Socrates lived, they voted for him to be put to death because he was polluting the minds of the youth. And what was he polluting it with? He was polluting it with, ideas, questioning the religion of the time. And yeah, that sounds like conservatism to me. That's one big example right in the what we look at as the origins of democracy. Democracy was used to put down liberal ideas by death. Hmm. Well, anyway, I think that's one of the big ones, which is conservatism usually goes hand in hand with religion. Religion is very old, and it's not usually something that is tending to evolve. I'm more familiar with Catholicism, and one of the things is that, Stanley from Marvel, I I've heard that he he came up with an idea and came up with, I guess we can loosely say that because there's so many things that I don't think that he really came up with that are ascribed to him. But yeah, there is something that is, I forget the word, ascribed to him, which is the illusion of change. And as a Catholic, I think that that was definitely something that, well, no, I can see that that's what it was. The illusion of change. Like you might have somebody like Pope John Paul II who would, bring out, yeah, this is a new catechism, a new bunch of da 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 da. No, not really. At the end of the day, women can't be priests still. Um, I can't remember the details that John Paul would have come out with, but Francis, Francis would be like progressive, and he's a new guy on the block. He's the first guy who's not from Europe, born in Europe to be a pope. I think. Yeah, I think he's from South America. But anyway, at the end of the day, sorry, we can't accept, homosexuality. That's not gonna work. We should be nice to people who are homosexual. I mean, yeah, no, women, priests, no. I think he said something along the lines of clearly the whole Garden of Eden thing and the origin story of the world is like a parable. It's not exactly real. Well, that kind of changes everything. It's supposed to, if you don't think that it's real. But ultimately, it kind of doesn't change anything um, because there's no real change that you can see. Even though he kind of changes certain things, but nothing really. So there's that tie in that I think encourages authoritarianism, dictatorships, what I say goes, that dogma that comes from religion is definitely in conservatism. Nobody ever elected God, right? God is God. And it doesn't matter what God does, it's right. So if God, you know, made everything, that's fine. And then he made human beings, it's fine. And then God goes on a vacation and leaves these human beings with this tree and a command not to eat from the tree. And they eat from it, and God gets upset. I mean, I was telling somebody some time ago, it's kind of like if you left your kids alone in the house without a babysitter and without the knowledge of good and evil, and then they did something that hurt themselves, can you come back and punish them? People would call that neglect. You would be under arrest. But no, that's not what happens because there's nobody to appeal to because it's God, so it's right. And as I remember it, that was one of the things I guess that would have gotten Socrates that death sentence, which was that, hey, is something right because the gods say it's right, or is it right because it's right? So I think how that one went was if you think that something is right, regardless of whether or not the gods say it's right, then that means that there's a power and an authority that is higher than the gods. And the person that Socrates was talking to circled back and said, well, no, okay, then, it's whatever the gods say is right is actually right. So then you come back to, okay, so then there's no absolute right and wrong. It's just whatever the gods come up with on a moment's notice, that's right. And if they flip back and say that it's wrong, then they're contradicting themselves. Yeah, that kind of talk is what got Socrates condemned to death. And if you look at the whole family structure, I mean, that might be slightly different from religion, the idea of religion. The family structure where the father is the head of the household, there's no democracy there. A wife should obey her husband. And, this whole situation where I remember that, for people in previous generations, not too far off, a woman couldn't open a bank account without her husband's permission. Um, in some places, a woman probably couldn't leave the country or she couldn't work without her husband's permission. If you go back a good bit further than that, you come to the idea that, hey, a woman can't even vote. You know, forget second class citizen. I mean, so yeah, I mean, that is not anything that's encouraging democracy or respect for different ideas. It is, hey, I'm your father, and what I say goes. And of course, the whole thing with religion was that if you look in religion, you can look in Islam, if you look in Hinduism, if you look in Christianity, or even Judaism, right? Slavery is okay. And even Paul, from the Bible, I think his idea was that, hey, slaves, be obedient to your owners. And the whole thing about a slave is that, hey, you were free, but I came and enslaved you, and now the right thing for you to do is to obey me because I used force to force you into doing what I wanted and to come and live with me and to obey my commands. So now I shouldn't have to even use force anymore. You should know that you're my property and conduct yourself uh, suitably. That's just mind-boggling. It's like, no, you put the shackles in your mind. And uh, that's in Judaism, that's in Christianity, that is in Islam. Why wouldn't it be? It's an Abrahamic religion. But then you look at the, Hinduism, caste system. If you're in the lowest caste, you're there because you're supposed to be there. You are there because you did something bad in another life. Never mind that there are more people alive now than could ever have possibly been around to be reincarnated now. So that doesn't really make sense. Um, well, by this I mean that there's a growing number of people every year. So they are not being reincarnated if they're all simultaneously alive now. And, you know, in previous generations, in an increasing number, that doesn't make any sense. But, religion isn't really about sense. It's just another means of control. Um, the way that everything else is, that whole thing about slaves be obedient to your owners. But yeah, uh, that's why it is not, it is not any kind of a surprise to see in the U.S. and with respect to Donald Trump, um, that so many people would be just dogmatically following what um, Donald Trump was suggesting in terms of before. Well, I guess that's the one thing um, that Donald Trump could rely on is that in the media outlets where he said what he was going to do, he's like, if I win, then it's a fair election. If I don't win, that means it was stolen from me. He said that months before, but most of his followers probably would never have seen that, right? Because they don't watch those media outlets. And he could go on there and they didn't watch those media outlets and they don't read those books that come out. He didn't set up the situation to be like that, of course. It's just a very convenient circumstance for him to find himself, which is he can speak freely on certain media outlets. I don't know if that is something that he's aware of. Well, actually, nobody on the media outlets like Fox and these other things would ask him questions going down that route. In the liberal media, they would ask him, any kind of question they feel like that he might end up answering honestly. And, it would be information that would contradict even people, who write those books. It would be information that would contradict what he might say at a rally or any other place. I don't think that he said at any rally that, hey, if I lose, it's it's a fraud, and if I win, then it's fine. Um, but there is the dogma of conservatism. There's the religious aspect of it that does not, that, well, is very good ground for authoritas authoritarianism and a lack of, what is the word? Everybody coming together and agreeing on an idea or a way forward. And there's just the general idea that if things are the way that they are, or used to be, there's a good reason for that. And you shouldn't go against nature. Never mind that certain things like homosexuality can be observed amongst other animals. I remember there is a book, well, not really a book, but the writings or the observations of, um, I think there was an explorer who went to Antarctica, maybe, and maybe did some, I can't remember the guy's name at all, but he had a certain bunch of things that he wrote where he said not for publication. And in it, I guess he was, just writing what he saw, but what went against um, the thoughts at the time about homosexuality. That, hey, I'm seeing a lot of different animals here. This is nature, this is natural, that are apparently gay, are apparently homosexual. And if that is natural because it's in nature, then does not contradict the whole idea and the dogma of um, going against nature and things are a particular way for a reason. Because if you're following nature, then you're gonna see that what is in nature is what you're seeing in human beings, and that should mean that it's fine. Anyway, as usual, I'm probably gonna forget a whole bunch of stuff that I was thinking before I started this piece, but that's how it goes. Unless I want to take a whole bunch of notes and follow them, which I probably, maybe I should, I don't know. But at the same time, I also like a free flow of thinking. But, that's change. At some point, I might decide that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, um, thanks for listening if you did, and have a good one. Peace.